double check that label in the back before you
All
flash.
right, well, let me see. I think, yeah, it'll be owned by Coke if it's not already.
All righty. Well, we are live here for the Esports Trade Association's monthly LinkedIn Live. My name is John Davidson. I am the board chair, and I am so excited to be joined by Izzi Demara of RoomReady and Jason Tirado of Lightware, who is their CEO. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing a lot of knowledge today, some technical knowledge around USB-C and other things with our community. Jason, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Tell us, what is Lightware? Help our audience understand who you are and what you're doing in this space and beyond.
Thank you, John. It's good to see you again, by the way. You know, I think we got a little time together at the esports conference, the next conference, which was just a fantastic event for the second year in a row, I'll say. You know, we were gold sponsors and got to meet a lot of people and find out a lot about what's going on there. Yeah, I'm Jason Tirado, Lightware CEO US, and I've heard this question many times, right? So I've got to figure out a simple way to say it, and I've tried and tried and tried. I think I've got one now. Okay, so on one side of the world, there's cameras and computers, and on the other side, there's displays like TVs and monitors. And Lightware is everything in between. So whether you're going 3 feet or 30 feet or 300 feet, and whether you've got a one-to-one relationship or many-to-one relationship, it doesn't matter. That's Lightware in the middle. So if you have a high-end computer or camera and you've got a display and you need to see it on, Lightware from here to there.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense.
Good.
Connecting everybody in the middle. We appreciate that. And then Izzi, tell us what RoomReady does.
Yeah, so RoomReady, you know, technically we're an audiovisual integration company. For the non-technical folks, we take all of those displays, cameras, pieces of hardware and put them all together so they work. So RoomReady specializes in audiovisual conferencing. We work with WebEx, Teams, Zoom, all the different platforms that you can use. And we get to work with awesome companies like Lightware to make solutions that work best for you and your company.
Fantastic. Well, it makes a lot of sense why you two are here with me today. We appreciate that. And our topic today, of course, is USB-C. I think a lot of our viewers and listeners are probably more familiar than USB-C than even realize. As I was having conversations with you all and preparing for this LinkedIn Live, and I said, you know what? I've got one over here for my GoPro, and I've got one over here for my computer, and this is all very convenient. Jason, why don't you give us an overview? What is USB-C and what's special about it?
Sure. Well, I think you touched on it, right? USB-C is a new physical format connector type and standard that allows you to connect audio, video, data, and power from one point to another. And I'll just tell you a quick, it's an evolution, right? So USB, and most people are familiar with, has been around for quite a while. Since probably the late 90s, there was a USB 1.0 topology that was introduced with very low bandwidth and really just for like keyboard and mouse type devices. But then like everything, you know, in computing, as time goes by, the bandwidth consumption gets higher and higher, and the speeds themselves change, the connector types change. And so most people, when they think about USB right now, they're probably still thinking about those legacy USB connectors. There's A-type connectors, B-type connectors, the kinds that are infuriating because you try to plug it in and more than half the time you have to flip it around, even though you should only get 50% of the time that happens, but somehow it just seems like the casino of the world works against you. So I first really got involved with USB-C based on the back of a meeting that the CEO of Lightware Global and I had with a large multinational up in the Seattle area. They're a software company. I'll leave it to you to kind of figure out the rest. But we were in there and we were talking to them about the kind of rooms they were going to build. And they said, Jason, listen, we're going to build a lot of very small rooms that have a display or two in them. And we're going to have like a camera or sound bar, you know, on the wall, right? So people can see what's going on and hear what's going on. But our users are going to walk in with their own devices. And in this case, they were talking about Surface hubs, you know, and they said, but that when they walk in, they're going to have a USB-C device and they want to be able to connect it to the system. And we said, okay, well, we need to go learn about USB-C then, because it's going to become a dominant form factor across all devices. And as you see, iPhone just announced their latest, USB-C adoption on some of their new products. So it's now not just a specialty thing anymore. It's going to become everywhere. And then all the computers have USB-C. HDMI is kind of still there, but it's starting to sort of fade away a little bit. And USB-C is becoming dominant, and it became a big deal for us.
Yeah, I've recognized it in my own life, just all the devices around the house for me, for my son. It's like, you got to charge this thing. Does this
Right.
one work? Oh, how convenient that this one works for all of these things. My Apple laptop charger is also working with, the tablet I have, or also working with the GoPro and things like that. It makes it extremely, extremely convenient, rather than, man, which charger
Right.
or do I need for every single different little thing?
You put your finger on something though that's very interesting. Izzy, you brought it up, so I might let you kick this off. But go ahead, Izzy. What did he say that was interesting about that? Because I think you know.
I think probably like the biggest thing for us at RoomReady is we work with a lot of different solutions where we're incorporating BYOM technology. So bring your own meeting. So you might have a conference room that's native to Microsoft Teams, but you also need to bring that Zoom meeting. So you can't necessarily host and start the meeting there, but you can start it on your laptop with that USB-C, and using some of the Lightware hardware like the Taurus UCX, you're able to then plug your USB-C into your computer, run that meeting, and it's charging your computer. I think for a lot of our end users, that is a huge difference, because traditionally, they bring their laptop to a conference room to run this. They plug in their HDMI, they get 40 minutes into the meeting, and then they get the low battery. Well, that's going to end your whole meeting. So being able to not only run a meeting, present, host, and charge your computer with one device, with one cable, makes for a much better user experience for our end users, and it makes it simple and convenient.
Yeah, Izzy hit it just right. I'll add on to what she said, because John, what you were talking about was the ease of connectivity for USB-C cables, right? But there's something we need to make the audience aware of, and just everybody in general. The USB-C form factor, that little physical connector type that plugs in, that just defines the physical connector. It does not tell you anything about what's happening on the USB-C cable itself. So you get that USB-C cable from Apple. Not to put anything bad news on Apple, it's just a USB-C product that they make. But in some cases, almost all cases, even though it fits, it doesn't have audio, video, data, and power completely. Some of them will just be power cables, or some of them will have limited data capability. So you can get some things, but not others. And it's very confusing for people out in the world, because they're out there plugging what appears and feels to be like a legitimate connector into the socket, but then they go look and they're like, wait a second, I'm not getting what I thought I was. And that's because there's no way to tell by looking at the USB-C cable itself that it doesn't have all the data pairs connected.
Interesting. Is there a way around that, or a best practice in ensuring that we do have, in fact, the right cable rather than the one that looks like it's right?
By Lightware. That's the easiest, best way you could do it. Yeah, we are branded our own cables with the USB-C full, data connection throughput. And yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do it, but there's no way to tell just by looking at the cable. It's going to be kind of brand dependent. And we only sell full data grade Lightware cables. I know that's a shameless pitch, but it's the truth. And if you want to go out and experiment yourself, you can. But I've watched people experiment. And a lot of times it's frustrating, and they spend a lot of time doing it. Izzy, I'm sure at RoomReady, you guys must have also kind of discovered that there's this whole variety of USB-C looking cables that aren't the same.
Yeah, I think for the end user, for a non-technical person, the easiest way to think about it is the USB-C is just the connector. And then everything inside that cable that you can't see is what makes it different. So I think that's where people get frustrated of, well, I use this cable and it worked in this conference room, but I'm using a USB-C here and it's not working. Well, it's probably not the same cable between the two. So I think it's important to note that kind of what matters is not just the connector itself, but what's within that cable, whether you've got different data transfer requirements, or you have different audiovisual sharing requirements, different charging requirements. All of those things are hidden within that cable that you can't necessarily see. So I think it's important to be aware of what are your needs, and am I choosing a USB-C cable that meets those needs as well?
That's right. That's right. I hate to do this also, but a lot of it comes down to cost. You know, if you see an inexpensive USB-C cable on, eBay or Amazon or whatever, it's probably inexpensive because it's not full featured, right? They're selling you the USB-C connector, and they've got some connections from one side to the other, but they're not providing you the full data path that USB-C standards are capable of. And just because you see the USB-C connector doesn't mean you're out of jail. You know, you're going to have to spend a little bit more to make sure you got a good quality cable that's got all the connections inherent.
Yeah, that's great insight. And I really love the example of that meeting room as well. I think, especially pre-COVID, we can all relate to getting in those meeting rooms, and whether you were the person who had to get there early to make sure that everything worked for your meeting, or you're just in the meeting experience, hey, which cable is it? And oh no, my battery's dying. Well, in the esports industry, obviously we deal with that at times, but we also deal with larger productions. Can you share a little bit about, for any type of large live event, how is USB-C affecting that experience for producers as well?
So I'll take a stab at that, Izzy. One of the things that's coming around all of this is a new concept which we call USB host switching. So before I delve into that, let me just level set for everybody who's watching that may or may not know the topology of a USB science. So the USB assumption is that there's a host, which is a computer on one side, and then there's a peripheral, which is the USB camera, microphone, speaker, sound bar, keyboard and mouse, data connection. There's a peripheral, there's a thing on the other side. And those two things connect, which is why we're talking about this physical layer connectivity between the two devices on the USB-C cable. So in every topology, there's a host and there's a peripheral, and then USB-C stuff is in the middle along with Lightware. When we're talking about host switching, what we're talking about now is the ability for, let's say you're in an environment and you've got a camera in front of you, like I've got this one in front of me, but now I want to do what Izzy talked about, and the camera wants to not be associated with my computer anymore. It wants to be associated with somebody else's computer that walked in the room or is about to do a presentation. And so that USB host sharing is where the Lightware Taurus comes in. And that's applicable whether you're in a conference room or whether you're in a gaming environment or anywhere that you've got a presentation camera, mic, and speakers, but that you want to be able to dynamically associate that with a new host that's coming into the room. And so if you come in and you're saying, hey, I've got this crazy new game on my computer, let's look at it on that display that's on the wall. And by the way, let's share it on Twitch with whoever's watching or whatever. And we got a camera here. You can just literally grab that USB-C cable and plug it in, and we can switch all of those peripherals and all that display stuff over to the new host computer.
That's wonderful. Izzy, any thoughts from your side from that esports competitive aspect?
Yeah, I think Jason touched on it a little bit, but when we're talking about like the speed of data transfer, especially in an esports environment, that can be huge. So making sure that from your console to the display, you're getting the machine's getting it there as fast as possible for that, competitor who's on their controller, then they're not waiting on a lag. There's no lag to it. And so that can make a huge difference, between two competitors. If one has, a cable with like a 40 gigabytes per second transfer speed and one has 10, gigabytes per second, that does make a huge difference in how we're sending information both directions. I think something we haven't touched on quite yet is that the USB-C is a bi-directional cable. So you are able to send information both ways simultaneously in a way that other USB-Cs and the USB-C predecessors haven't been able to. So having that data transfer speed, it's only getting faster and faster, as Jason said earlier, but it really is going to make a difference for those competitors to make sure that they are up to speed literally and competing in real time. And then, when it comes to larger venues, I think another thing to consider is the distance that a USB-C can send data and signal. So, if you're in a huge esports arena, a venue, you've got, your competitors, they might be set up at their own little desks, their stations, they've got their equipment, and then you've got like a video wall. How fast are we sending that information back and forth? Same thing for a live stream. That is going to matter as well, especially, for our Twitch live streamers, or if they're live streaming on YouTube, wherever they're at, having that real-time speed is going to be so important, and it's going to help them interact with people in the comments as well.
Can I just jump in, John? Because Izzi brought up something really important. So yeah, we totally skipped over this, but she's exactly right. There are severe distance limitations when you come to high bandwidth cables, right? So the higher the bandwidth goes, the shorter the cable gets, because you've got to be able to get all that data across the cable. And Izzi's 100% right. Most of the time, you'll see these USB-C cables. They're only 3 feet long or maybe 6 feet long, and so they're limited by the manufacturer. And what we've done is at Lightware, we're now working on extension technologies, right? So that we can have your source computer, your gaming environment, wherever it is, in one location, but then you can also get the power of that USB-C across the network. And next year, we're bringing to market a whole series of extenders that will allow the USB cameras, the peripherals, the hosts to all be co-located around the environment, but we'll get over this distance limitation. And that's really important, because we're going to have, an Ethernet type backbone, a 10 gigabit Ethernet type backbone, right? But then your peripherals, which are coming out USB-C natively, when you buy it from the camera company, it's going to have a USB-C whip on it, or on your computer, you're only going to have a USB-C input. And those things are now going to attach to Lightware devices that'll be on the 10 gig network, and we'll be able to get out of this little limitation we've got on the length of the USB-C cables themselves.
Wow, I can imagine how huge that is, just the flexibility from a physical event perspective, right? Right now you're kind of chained to a wall, if you will, right, for a few feet. But when you have that extension, the ability that you now have with where things are, how things are set up, opens up dramatically, it sounds like.
Exactly. So I'll give you, Izzi, I'll take one example, and then maybe you can take it over and talk about an actual installation. But to your point, John, right now it's sort of a one-to-one relationship, right? I got one camera connected to my one computer, and that's okay, but people always want more. The next iteration is going to be, I'm going to have a USB camera over here that's kind of a wide shot. I'll have a USB camera here that gives us tight shots. I'll have a USB camera over there for another presenter. And now we can take all three of those USB cameras, and they can all show up simultaneously on a single desktop, right? So now I can choose which camera I want to see for which applications and what I'm doing. You almost become like a TV producer at that point, right? Now you're choosing between different shots and deciding which is the right one for the audience. Izzi, I don't know if that matters to your applications, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the job that we did together.
Yeah, I think Jason's dead on. When it comes to esports or collaboration where we're working in a space with multi-cameras, having, a switcher, the Taurus matrix switcher, is what our end users plug their computer into. They're able to either select which camera they want, or our programmers will kind of do their magic and figure out how to make sure that we're speaker tracking appropriately. And so the USB-C is critical to that. I know we've done a few big installations with Jason's, Taurus. We've got an end user who we've installed probably close to 1,000 rooms for them at this point across the nation and North America, really. And they use that Taurus UCX in every single installation, whether it is a small huddle room, maybe 3 or 4 people, or an extra large conference room or training room where we might have, a 4-way divisible training room, and we're using a Lightware in each of those spaces.
John, can I just jump on the back of what Izzi said for a second?
Absolutely.
So when we talk about the combination of audio, video, data, and power on the USB-C cable itself, it's easy to think from a user standpoint about how that connectivity is really simplified. You no longer have to struggle with 5 different cables, to try to figure out how they all go on your computer or whatever. It's very simple, just one connection and you're done. but the complexity is still there, right? And so even though you've connected that simple cable and you now have whatever experience you're getting, on the other side of that cable, we've still got audio, video, data, and power that we've got to account for, which is why coming into the Lightware device, it separates those signals back out into their constituent components. And then you get the chance to kind of do whatever you want to. I can send this video there. I can send that audio there. I can send this Ethernet path down that way. And so although it's simple for the user, right, you don't want to lose the ability to be able to manage those layers separately. And that's kind of where we bring the magic to what Izzi and RoomReady do.
That's fantastic, because you do have this separation from the expert and the super technical person who knows how to do all these things, and then just the average person, right? And so the average person who kind of just has the capability just to plug that cable in, well, you still want to be able to have all these capabilities and this quality that you would with the technical specialist, I think is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. There's one other thing too that I really like about it, which is somebody, one of my guys came back to me after a meeting and he said, the customer walked in and said, we just want one button to press. People are all into simplicity. They don't want to have to figure anything out. I just want one button. And he said, well, can I make it even simpler than that? How about one cable? So now you don't even have to wait and look for a touch screen or an interface. People have kind of gotten used to that they walk in and they're looking for the controller in the room. With the Lightware and RoomReady combination, as soon as you got the cable and you plug it in, all that back end mysterious magic stuff can happen right away, because that's just like getting a button pressed to us. We got that cable connected, bam, turn on the TV, dim the lights, turn on the waterfall, start the transmission. All that stuff can kind of happen behind the scenes.
That's fantastic. So I'm imagining there's a number of people watching and listening here who, as we've gone through this evolution with these different technologies, right? Now we're here at USB-C, probably have a bunch of older versions of technology or cords. What is your advice? What is your direction to groups and people who are kind of working towards their transition and how to get to where we are today to take advantage of exactly what you're talking about?
Izzi, you want to take that one? Well, I think, or do you want
Yeah,
me to do it?
absolutely. I think probably the big thing, if, an end user saying, okay, we've got this outdated technology, whether it's, just a presentation only space where they've just got a display, there's no camera, anything going on in that room other than maybe an HDMI cable with 7 different dongles attached to it for different computers. They really need to think about what do they want out of that space. And then from there, you can start to think about, okay, how do we then, upgrade our technology appropriately? To Jason's point about it's simple for that end user to just walk in, plug in, and go. It's also extremely scalable for some larger companies, because they're providing a consistent user experience between every single space. So, that's going to increase adoption. I know we're back and forth between hybrid work. Is it here to stay? Is it not? Nobody really knows, but things are changing. So when we talk about we want the office to be a magnet, not a mandate, you don't want them to go to the office and be frustrated with the conference room, and then everyone goes to their own individual offices and are just meeting on that screen. So you're making that experience scalable with that, one plugin for the USB-C. There's a lot of magic happening on the back end that, our solutions architects and engineers take care of. But at the end of the day, you would want to make sure that what you want your experience to be. You need to know what you want your functionality of these updated spaces is. And then from there, you can start to kind of work back. But I think keeping, that USB-C central to those solutions is the way of the future. And it's something that we're going to continue to see. And again, it's going to be scalable and consistent, across the board.
Izzi hit it on the head. Unfortunately, this is just the world we live in with technology, right? You buy what's on the market today and what seems to fit your needs today. And then tomorrow something new comes out and you have to kind of determine, are you going to make that jump or are you going to stay with what you got if it suits your needs? That'll never stop. But I can agree that this USB-C thing, it's not going away anytime soon. As soon as all the laptop manufacturers adopted it, and then that announcement by Apple about their iPhones adopting it. It's going to be around for, I'd say, at least the next 3 to 5 years, as a dominant connector. 5 years is a long time in technology. 7 years is probably an eternity in technology. But I'd say if you want to get ready for the next 3 to 5 years, this USB-C, connector is just going to be part of our lives.
Well, I really appreciate that, because I think what a lot of companies who are making the switch is, when do I jump to the latest version, right? Am I going to invest all this money and resources and, we just changed all our cables to this, and Apple just made an announcement they're doing something completely different, right? So it does sound, Jason, obviously you're not a fortune teller, but from what you're seeing in this market, and Izzi, you as well, that you can confirm that USB-C is a technology for us to get into now, and it'll be well served for being here for quite some time.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of go back to my original statement, right? There's cameras and computers, and there's displays, right? And if all cameras and computers are moving towards USB-C, which they are, right, then that's where we're going to have to go, because that's the physical connector that we're going to have to connect to get that data out of there. And I think the next big question is, what are displays going to do? Right now, HDMI is still a big dominant connector type for the display itself. But I think we're probably going to start seeing more USB-C connectors actually at the display, because displays are becoming smarter and smarter. Some of them now, they're not just displays, they're actually compute devices themselves. So it starts to get complex. But if I were going to try to tell the future in my world, that's the thing I would keep an eye on, is what is the physical form factor that is dominant on the source device, cameras and computers, and what is dominant on the displays. And that's the stuff in the middle that we're going to have to contend with.
Absolutely. Well, I'm curious, just from each of your company's perspectives, as those are following this conversation, I want to encourage our listeners and viewers to follow you personally as well as your company. Izzi, I'll start with you. What are some things that people either should be aware of about RoomReady, or things that you're looking forward to that we can be excited about?
Yeah, I think with RoomReady, one of the things that kind of sets us apart from other integrators is our process. If you're looking at an AV integrator and you need a meeting room, at the end of the day, you're going to have a meeting room with whichever platform and hardware you choose. But I think the process for RoomReady is much more holistic, where, we're meeting with the end user, we're talking about what their needs are. We've got a tech lab set up where we can demo and configure all these different solutions so that you can experience them and see which one fits your needs best. And from there, we go through the installation process, we install, and then we actually complete a pretty extensive commissioning report. So we don't leave your meeting room until it's completely functional. We've done a demonstration for that end user, and they've signed off on it saying, yeah, this is exactly working as expected, good to go. And, not a lot of companies do that. So that's a big thing for us is, maybe it's the good Midwestern, foundation of us, but we want to do things the right way. And, we don't want to leave our end users high and dry with a meeting room with all of this different hardware and displays and cameras that doesn't work. And so, we really believe that simple is better, speed matters, and flexibility is key. And that flexibility really comes down to meeting that end user's need. And in this case, today, a lot of that is around that USB-C.
That's great. Well, I'll that was great, by the way, Izzi. I'll say, for Lightware, we're a family and a team and a company of inventors. Our headquarters in Budapest, Hungary has got about 280 engineers, and 80% of them have master's degrees or better. We have a very, very robust relationship with the Budapest University, which is known around Europe for its engineering program. We hire mechanical, software, electrical engineers out of that program into our company. And so we're able to dictate our own future. We're able to invent. And this is kind of the thing that made me fall in love with Lightware, and why I'm still here is that ability to look at the world as it's changing around us and not be beholden to somebody else. Because if we want to invent that future, we can. We get that availability and that resource. And so, back to that original story I told about walking into that company, when they told us and gave us a glimpse into where the future was headed, and they said, hey, USB-C is going to be what we're going to need, and you might want to keep an eye on it. we were able to go back with our engineers and go do something about it, and create these products that end up kind of contributing to what Izzi talked about that RoomReady does. So that's something I really take a lot of pride in.
That's fantastic. Yeah, having that ownership and that ability to really make your own luck, if you will,
Yeah,
rather than being dependent on what every other manufacturer or person is doing. You're saying, no, we're doing this. We believe in this. We're going to go do it and create that technology and provide that for our customers.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want to do. We've been doing, and we're going to keep doing.
Fantastic. Anything else that you feel strongly that we should add to this conversation about USB-C? And if not, Jason, how can people get in touch with you, with Lightware, and in the proper ways?
Well, if there was one last thing I would say, it's the only good thing about getting old is I've seen everything before. And what I first saw when I first got into this was that there was no connectivity between video conferencing endpoints unless they all came from the same manufacturer, and that was, you had to have the one on the other side to be able to talk to each other.
Right.
And then they finally got away from all that, right? And then the software guys got involved, and they said, oh, we're going to create problems again. We want licenses and everything. And that's why now people are caught up in this web of licensing between different things. But Lightware is normalizing things at the hardware layer, right? We're saying, okay, Mr. Zoom, Mr. Teams, Mr. Chime, Mr. whatever it is that's on your mind today, go ahead, use your platform. When you get down to the layer where the audio, the video, and the data and the power have to get across, come to Lightware. We've got your USB-C covered, and you guys can do whatever you want to on the software layer. And so I think that's some real big advantage that we offer. If people want to come email us, we've got a sales.na@lightware.com email address, sales.na, like North America, @lightware.com. A team of people monitor that email address and can respond for if people have designs or drawings or problems. And of course, I know Izzi at RoomReady would probably be happy to take a few drawings and a few inquiries as well. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Izzi, same question to you. Anything you'd like to add, or if not, how can people connect with you in the ways you'd like them to?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest takeaway for people, here learning about USB-C is just remember that the USB-C is the connector and that's separate from the cable. So not all USB-C cables are the same. So keep that in mind. If it's not working with a USB-C cable you have, but it was working with a different one, just know that there's something different on the inside of those that you can't see. So there is a right USB-C cable for your application. You just might need to think about it a little bit more. And if anyone's interested in talking more with me about AV, esports, video conferencing, USB-C cables, of course, they can always reach out to me at idemara@roomready.com or, add me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk with people and talk technical, get out of just, the marketing world a little bit, which is, I love it, but it is fun to get a little technical sometimes. And then for RoomReady, you can always reach out to us. Our website's roomready.com. We've got a contact us form on there, or you can reach out to me directly and I can point you in the right direction.
Well, I greatly appreciate that from both of you. Speaking to our viewers and listeners here, if you see value in connecting with folks like Jason and like Izzi and taking part in more of these insightful conversations. If you're not yet a member of the Esports Trade Association, we greatly encourage you to do so. This is the group where we are bringing together both the core esports industry alongside complementary experts like Izzi, like Jason, to help support and grow this industry in healthy and impactful ways for the future. A great opportunity to join us is actually tomorrow morning. We have our monthly coffee connections at 9 a.m. CST. I will be there myself. Jason, Izzi, of course, you two are more than invited to be there. And Jason, I know I've seen you at a number of those yourself. They're just great moments where we just get together on a Zoom call and we express what we're working on, what we need, and who we'd like to connect with. And we see real-time business and relationships form and being facilitated in those moments, which is really exciting. We're also getting very close to announcing details for Esports Next 2024, which is our tentpole annual conference. We're very excited to share some of those details very, very soon. So keep track of that at esportsnext.gg. And you can also see our events calendar at esportsta.org for all future events as well. Jason, Izzi, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing this expertise on USB-C, supporting the industry and beyond. And all viewers and listeners, I greatly encourage you, get in touch with Jason, get in touch with Izzi, and choose Lightware and choose RoomReady.
That was great, John. Thank you so much. Good to see you again. Take care.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.